Hello and welcome again to Not Fake News. Don't forget to share, subscribe, smash that like button. We have a bunch of breaking stories to get to right now, so let's do this. Grab them by the money, Hillary. Grab them by the money. Piece of dirt. Okay. First, Patti LuPone, didn't even know her name, just her face, just said something so hateful to Trump it made my jaw drop. This is nasty. And incredible. What Trump just said about Rick Scott is unbelievable. And we have full speech, 8 minutes long, Marco Rubio about President Trump's plan for Cuba during Miami event. So let's get right into this. First, Patti LuPone. That's a better name. You're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe. Well, you're going to believe it because the left is just so putrid. You'll believe anything they do right now. I mean, they literally are dirt. Right? Dirt. These people are dirt, man. Oh, man. Singer and actress Patti LuPone, I say that purposely, stunned reporter this week with her nasty remark about Donald Trump. Look what LuPone said about President Trump. It's really fast, so listen.
Why should President Trump come see your show?
Well, I hope he doesn't, because I won't perform if he does.
Really?
Really.
Tell me why.
Because I hate the motherfucker. How's that?
Yeah, throw that copyright song in so we get clipped and we don't get the video on. Nice try. She didn't stop there. Well, we heard that part. The Hollywood loons don't know anything about politics at all, whatsoever. Share this if you think Patti LuPone needs to quit giving her hateful opinion on Trump. Alright, that's it for that. Let's get into the real stories. Incredible. What Trump just said about Rick Scott is unbelievable. Today was a big day for President Trump, who spoke in Miami Friday afternoon about a change in U.S. policy on Cuba. Along with talking about Obama and his disastrous deals, Trump dropped this bombshell on Governor Scott himself. I hope he runs for Senate. President Trump says towards Governor Scott, I know I shouldn't say it, but it's true.
Great job. He's doing a great job. Oh, I hope he runs for the Senate. I know I'm not supposed to say that. I hope he runs for the Senate. Rick, are you running? Huh? I don't know. Marco, let's go. Come on, we got to get him to... I hope he runs for the Senate. We're deeply honored to be joined by amazing veterans of the Bay of Pigs.
Right. Before Trump approached the podium, Rick Scott moved through the crowd with an incredible introduction for the president and vice president. Oh, he moved the crowd. Got it. He moved them with a speech. I'd like to see that. Today we have a president and vice president who understands America will always stand for freedom, Rick Scott stated in Miami. Current governor of Florida, Rick Scott, talked about how hopeful he was when Fidel Castro finally ceased to exist. To the end of decades of torture and incarnation, the Castro brothers subjected to the Cuban people for too long. Scott goes on to say, unfortunately, nothing has changed and actually has gotten worse. Scott then bashes former President Obama on his horrible deal between Cuba, calling it an acceptance of tyranny. And President Trump will stand for freedom. Isn't it why we love our president? He says what we're thinking when he... I'm sorry, I'm screwing it up. He says what he is thinking when he is thinking it. And most of the time, it is exactly what we are thinking also. Share this comment and comment if you agree that the President Trump and make America great again. Yeah. Okay, next story. Rubio is at that same speech, and this is his 8-minute speech. It's our final story. Let's go in.
Thank you very much. The Sunday after the presidential election, I was at Dadeland Mall. I was in the parking lot of Dadeland Mall, and I called President-elect Trump on his cell phone to congratulate him on his victory. And one of the first things he said to me is, "What are we going to do to help the Cuban people?" A few weeks later, I had the honor of flying with him to Central Florida on Air Force One. And he again, in the midst of that conversation, asked, "What are we going to do to help the Cuban people?" My wife and I had the opportunity to dine with him and the First Lady in the White House. And in the middle of that conversation, he asked, "What are we going to do to help the Cuban people and the people of Venezuela, who are also living under a dictatorship?"
Wow.
6 weeks ago in the Oval Office, the President of the United States, gathered members of his cabinet, made a very clear decision. We are going to do whatever it takes to empower the Cuban people so that they can be free and live in a democracy and have economic and political liberties that they deserve, like everyone else in this hemisphere deserves. And he has not faltered in that commitment.
In other words, he's not a flake. He doesn't say something and forget about it. He said it 4 times. He's serious about what he says. Donald Trump, and I'm sorry, Dems, if you're listening, he's going to do everything he promised. And I know that's what scares you the most. You're not afraid that he's going to do terrible things. You're afraid he's going to do the good things that he's saying. You pieces of dirt you are on the left. Go on, sir. Continue your good speech. I like this guy, Marco Rubio.
The cooperation, the hard work, the commitment that this White House and that President Trump has shown to this cause, I believe has no precedent, certainly in the modern history of this great cause. We have been helped by many who have aligned with us, some who could not be here today. I do want to recognize Resident Commissioner Jennifer Gonzalez of Puerto Rico, nuestra hermana de la isla de Puerto Rico que está junto con nosotros, that she's with us on this issue.
You go,
But what I
homeboy.
want you to know is that in every single one of those instances in which the president spoke about Cuba, he also spoke about Brigade 2506. Because a few weeks before the election, for the first time in decades, he went to visit their museum, where they endorsed him, meaning the first time in decades that they had endorsed a presidential candidate. And there isn't a single time that I have spoken to the president about Cuba that he has not mentioned the brigade. And that strikes me because it reminds us that almost 60 years ago, when they were young men willing to fight and to die for the freedom of their homeland, they made an extraordinary sacrifice. And perhaps some of them felt that the time to make a difference was in the past. But I want them to know that almost 60 years later, they have made a difference. That meeting and their efforts, I believe, as much as anything else, has brought us to this day. And we just landed at the airport. I had the honor again of flying on Air Force One. They have the best M&Ms on the planet.
Wow. That's cool.
And you can take red lights when you're part of the motorcade that comes in legally without those crazy cameras. Never mind, I don't want to talk about that, but get rid of the cameras, yeah.
Funny thing is, I actually know someone who is close with the guy who created those cameras. Totally. Like she totally knows him, like close friends with him.
And it struck me as the plane landed and we were getting into the cars that brought us here, and we look at the.
But I've never gotten a deal on one of those tickets, oddly enough. Even though we know the person who made, and we probably could call him up and say, dude, a couple of those camera shots, you know, could you 86 those? But yeah.
President coming down the steps, he was greeted by dissidents, by freedom fighters, by people, some of whom on the island of Cuba have suffered greatly in the hands of this repressive regime. And less than a year and a half ago, an American president landed in Havana, greeted by a regime. A year and a half ago, an American president landed in Havana to outstretch his hand to a regime. Today, a new president lands in Miami to reach out his hand to the people of Cuba.
He says very seriously, as you can tell. He just got serious right there. And that's great. Look at that. It's so true.
And I close with this. Many will characterize this as an effort to punish the Cuban regime. And it will punish the Cuban military that oppresses its people and helps Maduro oppress their people in Venezuela. But more than anything else, this change empowers the people of Cuba. Not the government, not the regime, but the people. So that they can enjoy the freedom and the liberty. With a very clear message. America is prepared to outstretch its hand and work with the people of Cuba, but we will not empower their oppressors. And you mark my words. And you mark my words. Whether it's in 6 months or 6 years, Cuba will be free. And when it is, I believe that the people on the island and history will say that perhaps the key moment in that transition began on this day, here in this theater, with each of you, and with a president that was willing to do what needed to be done so that freedom and liberty returns to the enslaved island of Cuba. Voy a ser bien breve, que es muy difícil para un cubano y para un senador ser breve, pero lo voy a hacer. Porque quiero mandarle un mensaje al pueblo de Cuba. Y este es el mensaje. Que antes teníamos un presidente que le daba la mano al régimen que lo oprime. Pero ahora tenemos un presidente americano que le da la mano a ustedes, el pueblo cubano. Que los días en cual la política exterior de este país ayuda al régimen se están terminando, y los días en que la política norteamericana ayuda al pueblo cubano para que ellos puedan tener la libertad, la democracia y los derechos que se merecen, que Dios le ha dado. Y cuando ese día llegue, que Cuba será libre por fin, yo le aseguro que este día que estamos aquí hoy, la historia va a decir que es el principio del fin de este régimen. Gracias a un presidente llamado Donald Trump, que hizo lo que tenía que hacer para que la democracia y la libertad regrese a la isla de Cuba. Muchísimas gracias. God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah. Good man. Good man.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the governor of...
Good man. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Not Fake News. I certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. Hey, if you enjoyed that video, you will love the one we picked especially for you. So, click on it right where those arrows are pointing. And I'll see you in a moment. Thanks for watching Not Fake News.